Hey folks, it's Yannick Gwizdala. It's the Yannick Gwizdala podcast. I just got back from Europe. Felt like a 2-week trip. Really, in reality, it was only about 5 minutes. In this episode, we have drama, we have tragedy, we have sadness, we have joy. So many things happened while I was on the road and also back home while I was gone. Let's catch up on all of it. And I guess the headline will be how I managed to basically upset an entire race or religion, that being Soundgarden fans. And according to Spotify, they have 8,641,398 monthly listeners. That's just on one platform, never mind YouTube and Apple Music or that. There's basically a lot of Soundgarden fans in the world that I seem to have really upset. We're going to get into that. I think it's quite hilarious on a lot of levels, but I will do my best to understand it and to figure out what it was my words and actions had to do with upsetting so many people. Before we get into that and into the tragedy side of things, of stuff that happened on the road, it's here. The physical albums are finally, of course, they showed up while I was gone, but Mystery to Me, the 20th anniversary edition, the vinyl edition of Mystery to Me is here. It's in my hands. I have dozens of shipping labels back there that I printed as soon as I got back last night. It's all heading out today. I've got all my cardboard mailers. They're going worldwide. So all the pre-orders will finally go out after all this time. It took forever. There were massive delays on this being delivered. So I apologize for everyone that had to wait. I'm very happy to be able to share this with you now. Of course, I did a short run, but the copies that are left that didn't go in the pre-sale are available on the website right now. Links below in the description of the video. Let's talk a little bit about the road. I'm going to get to Soundgarden, don't you worry. Let's talk a little bit about the road. I was in Germany for Thomann Music with Ian Martin Allison. Super fun couple of days doing these two clinics. One very Line 6 centric, Line 6 sponsored, in fact, clinic for Thomann. It was a really fun 2 or 2.5 hours at their facility, at their village, their complex, their empire out there in Bergerbrach, or whatever the name of the little town is. Met Hans Thomann himself, sat down, had lunch with him a little bit, and just, massive shout out to Stefan and everyone who helped make it a really enjoyable experience. It kind of came out of nowhere, just from being at Guitar Summit last fall in Germany, meeting Stefan and him taking the initiative to say, hey, I think it'd be cool if you and Ian came out and did a clinic for us. And finally we made it happen, and Stefan was awesome. Everyone was awesome. Really very, very cool to be around there. I hope it's the first of many times that we get to go. They seem to have lots of plans for expansions and perhaps more live performances, all kinds of stuff going on there. What they're doing is very hip, and did an interview for their YouTube channel, which should be out some days from now. That should be interesting. I know Ian shot some YouTube shorts for them talking about the stomp. So just a really fun, very compact day, shall we say, because we arrived the night before and then went out there early in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, to do all this filming stuff and then do the clinic and then get straight on the train back to Frankfurt to get to London. And boy, oh boy, UK, London crowd. I know it wasn't just Londoners. It was people from all over the country. You did not disappoint. That place was packed on Sunday. We had a fantastic time. Shout out to Iwan Carranza for helping and for being there, help make the clinic happen. Massive shout out to Pauline and Lorraine and Justin at the Vortex, the venue we managed to get at the very last minute. They were amazing. Really, really super nice people, and you guys in the audience. That really made it very, very special. Made extra special by some special guests, especially for me there with Lawrence Cottle and Jeff Gascoigne, two of my original bass mentors and teachers from the very, very beginning over 30 years ago. So that was really cool. Danny Sapko was there, and I got to meet him for like 2 seconds at the bar in the middle of the clinic when I went back to get some water. And then afterwards, if you were there, you will know it was kind of chaos. I really wanted to say hi to Jeff and Lawrence because I hadn't seen them in so long. And by the time the time just ran out, the time evaporated. I didn't get to hang with Danny. I actually didn't get to hang with many of you guys because I had to go back to the hotel, check out, and get to the airport. So maybe tragedy was a little bit of an extreme word to use for it, but there were a couple of disastrous moments on this trip that came down to logistics. One being that Ian and myself and one of my best friends, great drummer, Benno Zackler, who I've known since Berkeley, who came out to Toman with us to hang, we were all standing on the station in Würzburg, and we're like, oh, everything's cool. We're running on time. We've got our tickets. Day's going good. And I get a notification to say, Ian, my flight, the flight that Ian and myself were meant to take to London has been cancelled. So like, oh, shoot. That's a drag. So we go into panic mode, not panic mode, but we go into like, control mode and try to get a replacement situation going on. That's always interesting because quite often it happens that flights are cancelled, but you aren't always immediately given a solution. So you want to be like on the bleeding edge of making that solution happen, making an alternative happen that sometimes is not necessarily getting on a plane, but is understanding that, okay, it's like 3:00 in the afternoon and we have to be in London by by 10 a.m. the next morning. So it is possible to bring into focus like planes and not just planes, but trains and renting a car and driving or any combination of any of those options. So that's what I was doing on the platform. Eventually I got on the phone with Lufthansa and we managed to get rebooked on a later flight. But then you kind of up your risk profile. This ended up being the last flight from Frankfurt to London, and you're sort of committed to that. And the later it gets, the less alternative options you have to make the situation work and to make your travel happen. So that was interesting. There was a little bit nail biting. Not that it was the first time that's happened. That's the 50th time probably that's happened in my life. And, you just take it on the chin and you deal with it. And ultimately, I was very optimistic that we were going to make it. And I knew just so much about that route from Frankfurt to London, of two places I'm very familiar with, modes of travel I'm very familiar with and have done, dozens, if not hundreds of times at this point. And I was quietly confident we were going to make it. What we weren't going to do was make it on time and with the relaxation that I had sort of built into the itinerary to put us in the best, frame of mind for doing the clinic the next day. The flight ended up being delayed and delayed and delayed, the last one that we got transferred to. And in the end, we start hearing about there's a curfew for flying out of Frankfurt. There's a curfew for landing in Heathrow. The Lufthansa were horrific. What they have become a total bullshit airline, who I will now try to be avoiding at all costs, which is simply not possible when you fly within Star Alliance and you fly a lot within not just Europe but within Germany. So it's going to be tough, but they were pretty horrendous all around. And little did I know that was only going to be the very start of my troubles with Lufthansa, because we did in fact make it. Instead of arriving at the hotel at 9 p.m., we eventually got to the hotel at sort of 1 a.m. or 1:15 in the morning, sort of beat up. I will say, I try and travel United only, or if not United, something in the Star Alliance network. That's just how I do it. Baggage allowance. I'll make more videos about that, even though I have in the past, about how I do that and how it is beneficial to try and do all your miles with one airline, one alliance. So I do that. I do a similar thing now with hotels, and I just happen to choose Marriott instead of Hilton or Hyatt or one of the big groups. And Marriott were great. Late check-ins after midnight are always a little bit dicey. So they had a reservation. They end up giving us room upgrades. They were super, super nice. It really helps when you have status with any of those things, airlines, hotels, whatever it is, car rental companies. It does soften the blow. It softens the blow when things are going well, and those things are sort of magnified and amplified even more when things are going bad. And the little details are sort of greatly appreciated when everything else is sort of crumbling around you. You do get some little a feeling that somebody is there helping, somebody's there trying to look out for you and make the day go a little better. So awesome. We got a little bit of sleep. Rolled out to the clinic the next day, a pretty crazy fast setup because we could only really get in at 10 a.m. One of the amps that was sent over by the backline company didn't work, so I ended up playing on something that is, I'm not going not going to name names, but if you were there, you know, and I'm just not a fan of that particular amp company, and it kind of sounded like garbage. But that's just another thing. You take on the chin and you keep going, you keep rolling, and ultimately that shouldn't dictate how much fun you're having. So I am getting better at that. I would say 20 years ago, that would have been a far bigger problem than it was this time around. So I'm happy. It was good information. I was like, oh, I'm able to let that sort of roll off and just carry on and not let it affect me. So I was really happy that not happy that I didn't get the amp I wanted, but happy with my own reaction to that. It was a good moment, and trying to find good moments in some challenging and testing times of travel was it was good. Did the clinic. You guys were fantastic. We had a blast. 2.5 hours, non-stop, just great questions. Really good. Just so happy that we did it. So happy that after the Eurobase Day thing got canned, that we got to get, me and Ian managed to get together and make something happen. And from the feedback I got from everyone there, that seemed to be reciprocated as well. So just a great success all round. Again, I wish I'd had time to hang with Danny a little bit longer. Appreciate him coming down, and he had a pretty hilarious question at the end. And maybe if there's some video footage I'll post that one. He put Ian and myself in a pretty tight and exposed spot, which was very interesting. I did not expect that. That was not on my bingo card that morning at all. But it would have been nice just to have a little more time to hang, talk about life and the world and bass and the internet and all the things we have going on in a similar way in our lives. I sort of wish this t-shirt had been ready before I left. I really wanted to wear it on the clinics, but it arrived the day after I left. So if you're wondering, no, I'm not making them. This was just a one-off for me, for some personal hilarity and to, you know, wearing YouTube videos like this. So no, I'm not going to be trying to make a profit off the back of that scene. Although it strikes me that comedians and who are, well, this is kind of synonymous, right? Every comedian is also a podcaster, or every podcaster is actually a comedian these days. They do, like when you look at Tom Segura and Your Mum's House, they do just make fun of people and create memes and then sell thousands of t-shirts like that. I don't think it would be sort of morally the right thing to do to make Guacamole Tuna t-shirts and sell them. Although I was thinking about, you know, if his tour does happen, I'm definitely going to the show in LA if I'm around, and I will be wearing the t-shirt, that is for sure. And if other people were going with me, I would consider having a few more made for us to wear them. But anyway, let's move on from that dumpster fire of a situation and get to sort of the disaster period. You know, I'm thinking like, damn, great clinic. There was so much fun. I saw Lawrence, I saw Jeff, Ivan, and just, you know, people in my life that I really appreciate. It was great with Ian. I say goodbye, like everything's cool. I roll back to the hotel, take a quick shower, pack my stuff, and I'm just cruising to the airport on the train thinking, great. Everything's running on time. Woo. Oh, la 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 la. Oh, I had to go again. Okay, yeah. Everything's running on time. I'm going to be in Munich tonight. You know, flying back out right away. Go to Munich. Then I'm going to rent a car in the morning and go up to do this filming. I had referenced that I was going to go film with someone on this trip, and I hadn't referenced who it was. I was going to keep it a secret. It'd be a little bit of a surprise when it came out. So now I can't, and sadly, so this is what happened. I get to the airport and I get into the lounge, and boom, like 30 minutes after I've sat down, I'm having some dinner in the lounge waiting for my flight, the flight gets canceled. And I look out the window, I'm like, there's no weather, there are no other delays with anyone else. And this just started the snowball effect of tonight's going to be kind of a shit night. So first flight to Munich, London, Munich, canceled. I go immediately to the front desk of the lounge. I'm first in line, and I start talking to the lady there, and she's like, okay, well, yeah, there seems to be an issue in Munich, and the inbound flight hasn't even taken off to come here, and she gives me all these reasons. Okay, pretty standard stuff. So I say, well, let's get cracking on what my other options are, because I have to be in Munich like tomorrow, or I have to be in Germany tomorrow, specifically up north of Nuremberg, and let's figure out how we can do that. So an alternate option comes up. I'm going to fly Austrian Airlines, another Star Alliance member, partner of Lufthansa and Swiss and Belgium, or Brussels Air. And she said, well, okay, we can get you to Vienna tonight, kind of on a similar schedule. So, okay, Vienna, not Munich, but we can get you on the first flight to Munich in the morning, 6 a.m. They'll get you in just at 7 a.m. So you still have plenty of time. It's about a 3-hour drive to the studio, which I was anticipating anyway. We could still keep you on your same schedule. You're not going to get as much sleep, but you'll be in Munich. You can, leave, just go out of the airport, grab the rental car, and you're on your way. You can be at the session you can be at your destination by 10 a.m. easy, which was how I'd planned to do it. And the person in question is Martin Miller. Let's put that right out there, just so everyone knows what's going on. Martin Miller has a huge YouTube channel. Martin and Tom Quayle, a great guitar player from the UK, they did a cover version of one of my tunes, Mana, some years ago now, I believe. And I didn't see that until not that long ago. And I also met Martin at Guitar Summit in the fall last year. Just happened to be walking through the show, and I get tapped on the shoulder. Hey, you Yannick? I'm like, yeah. And he said, hey, I'm a big fan. I'm Martin Miller. I did this cover song of yours. And we stopped and talked for a little while. He said, hey, I'm doing this thing with Tom Quayle. Tom Quayle's here, and we're doing this duo thing. Pat Metheny travels. Would you care to join us and make it a trio? Yeah, great, of course. Everyone knows I'm a Metheny fan. I know Travels. I know the tune. Let's do it. So we did this little thing. I thought it went great. Just the three of us playing there, one tune on the little stage. And Martin said afterwards, before I was leaving Germany, he's like, man, if you're ever around, you're in Europe, I'd love to have you on the channel. Maybe we could do a duo. So of course, man, as soon as I'm around, as soon as I have something in that region, I'll hit you up. Let's 100% do that. So here we go. I'm going to Germany a bunch. I'm in Europe. I text Martin and say, hey, I'm going to be there. Do you want to do this? He said, absolutely. We're going to do this song and this song. I won't tell you which songs we're going to do because, spoiler alert, of course, you know where this is going. I missed the session, and we'll get to why in a second. And it's the first time I've missed something in my entire career that was based on my side. Things have been canceled before and a gig hasn't happened, but it's the first time in my entire career in 30 plus years that I've ever missed a gig. So that's the culmination of the story. But the middle of the story is still going in terms of we're going to do these two songs, and it develops from a duo. He says, actually, my drummer's available. Let's do it as a trio. I'm like, man, that's even better. Great. We have more production and awesome. And he's like, okay, I've got this place. We're going to go record. This is the studio. Fast forward to Sunday night, and my sort of travel world is falling apart a little bit. So as soon as the first flight gets canceled and I get on the second one going through Vienna, I leave Martin a voice message. Say, hey man, just want to let you know some things are a little fucked up, and this is what's happening. There's been a cancellation, but I'm on this other flight, and worst case scenario, I'm going to be a little bit later than I'd expected, but it's all looking like it's happening. About 30 minutes after I leave him that message, the Vienna flight is canceled, and I'm totally cooked. And this time they automatically book me on a British Airways flight that has nothing to do with Star Alliance the next day, and it doesn't get in to Munich until 4:00 in the afternoon, and the studio's a 3-hour drive from Munich, so I wouldn't get there until, who knows, 8:00 maybe by the time I got all my stuff and got the rental car. And I already have a flight from Munich to Barcelona that's leaving at 7:30 p.m. So this is like completely cooked. It's like totally cooked me. And at this point, it's already probably 7:30 or 8 p.m. now on Sunday night. So time, like I said before, the later it gets from the previous day where we'd had the problem with Frankfurt to London, the later it gets, the less options you have. And my options right at that moment are almost zero. So they're like, you have to get your luggage, get off airside and go to like, the other check-in area and go to a ticketing counter and talk to someone about getting rebooked if this rebooking we've given you is not satisfactory. So I go wait in line at what I think is a ticket counter, and it says rebooking on the sign above the counter. And I get to the front, and it's just the lane to get a free hotel for the night, which is kind of a standard thing with airlines. When they screw up, they'll give you a hotel. And I get there, I'm like, okay, great, thanks for the hotel, but now can I speak to someone in ticketing about, I need a big time schedule change right now to make this gig happen. And they're like, oh no, Lufthansa took away all physical ticket desks from Heathrow Airport to save money. You have to call this number. a number I'd already called, by the way, and hadn't been able to connect with a human being. And I was like, are you sure there's a human on the other end of this? Yep, no problem. You call them, they'll sort it out. Okay. So I call them. I'm still in the airport, and I call the number, and it says, you are 127th in line to be answered. I'm like, 127 people? If it takes them 1 minute to clear each call, which obviously it's not going to, it's going to take them way longer than that. That's already over 2 hours of wait time. And so I'm like, okay, I look at every other option of flight. There are just no flights. Everything has been now backed up, and there have been tons of cancellations to that area. Prague, Munich, Vienna, Bratislava, Berlin, Dresden, Stuttgart, even Frankfurt. Like, the weather has rolled in and no flights are going. So I'm like, dang, this is bad. I now know I have no options tonight. What do I have in terms of options at like 5 a.m. tomorrow? Is there an early flight out that will get me there in time? Okay. So I'm with my earbuds in on the phone. I go down with all my gear. I get a cab, still in line. I go to the hotel. I check in. I'm still in line. That was maybe 8 o'clock. I don't get to speak to a human being until 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was 5 hours on hold with Lufthansa. I get there to this person who speaks no English. I think it sounded very, very French, the accent. It was definitely a European number that I was calling, and the English was incredibly limited, considering I was calling a UK number. And like super heavy French accent, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning wherever. I think they were in Europe, and so everyone's like not really functioning. This is like the B team, and no one's really functioning at 100%. And this is already a long story long, but I also have, the planned flight to go to Barcelona the next day after the session, which now also needs changing, as well as the rebooking of the 2 cancelled flights that I have right now. Holy crap. So I get to this, and they're telling me like there's nothing they can do for me on any airline, because they have some options. They've already booked me to a non-Star Alliance airline on British Airways. They have options with other airlines and agreements that they can put stranded passengers on completely different airlines. And she's telling me there's like no way you're getting there before 4 p.m. tomorrow. Even if you go to London City, to London Gatwick, if you flew on the most horrific airlines like Ryanair and EasyJet, there's nothing available. Even though you can see them available on Kayak and Expedia, they're going to put you on. You can buy the ticket, but they're going to put you on standby. I was like, wow, well, this is new. There's normally always, this is testament to the fact that there's normally always a solution, because I've never missed. I've come into these situations before many times and always found a solution. And I was getting kind of emotional at that point. It was, I normally have the confidence, the willpower, the motivation, the basic skill set of communicating with people and understanding how it all works and what my options are, and helping someone on the other end of the phone who might not have thought of, who doesn't have 30 years experience in traveling and taking these planes and doing this week in, week out, like being able to suggest, well, we could go to Dresden instead of Munich, or these just other options. And none of it was working. And I was pretty crushed at that point. There's the pressure of like just not wanting to let Martin down. Here's another detail that really crushed me. When I got on the phone with Martin, one of the voicemails he sent back to me was like, oh man, when it was really looking like it's not happening, one of the things he said to me was like, man, this was going to be a surprise, but I actually got the full band, keyboards and like full 4-person camera crew and like all this extra stuff that we hadn't planned upon, because it was just going to be something small. He had actually gotten, and they were going to surprise me with it, and it was going to be this much bigger production. I was like, I couldn't believe it, man. I really felt like crying at that point. I really almost broke down. I felt so bad for him and all the effort he had gone to and all the work. And then just the anticipation of like, I really wanted to do it. we'd been sending ideas back and forth. I'd learnt the songs. He had worked on the songs. Like everyone had like really put in the time and the effort to make this a super fun experience. And I'd been looking forward to it for months now. And just all that came together and really crushed me. Like I hadn't felt defeat like that in a really, really long time. Like that just doesn't, that's what I was thinking to myself at the time. I was like, this doesn't happen to me. Like I don't do defeat. Like I do troubled situations, sure, but I do solutions, like immediate solutions. You know, I do action. I do like success. I don't do defeat like this. And it was just crushing. It still is. I talk about it right now and I'm feeling a little bit emotional about it because I feel so bad for letting Martin down and just not being able to find a solution like I normally do. So yeah, an incredibly long story, very long at this point. 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning. Oh, and the woman tells me like, in order to get you, because I still have to figure out getting to Barcelona now as well. It's like if the dominoes start to fall and I start to miss day after day after day and flight after flight, it's one of those things that can really like sink you financially, like eat into, if you're buying tickets and this and that in the last minute, they're always more expensive and the availability is zero. You're paying an absolute premium to change your travel plans at the last minute like that. So I'm just like, man, I need to figure this out so my whole week isn't a total disaster. And I have other people that I've already let Martin and his entire crew down. How do I like stem the bleeding? How do I put my finger in the dam and stop the water from coming out and still hold on to the other things I have booked in Barcelona and then all my travel onward from Barcelona back home? And this woman tells me that she can't do anything for my Munich to Barcelona ticket, which I now want to change into a London to Barcelona ticket because I'm not going to Germany. She says, our system automatically checked you in. And if you're already checked in, we can't change it. And I said, yeah, I didn't check myself in. I never do that because of this reason. She's like, I can't uncheck you. You have to call our internet number. And I'm like, it's 1:30. Are other people going to be calling your internet number right now because they are in exactly the same position as me? And she's like, yeah, probably. So I said, am I going to wait another 5 hours? Which I actually just don't have at that point. I've got to go. At 1:30 in the morning, I've got to make a decision. And at 6 a.m., I need to be on a flight somewhere. So she said, well, it's a 24-hour number. Here it is. Call them and see what happens. I call them. It's absolutely not a 24-hour number. They don't open until 10 a.m. So I think that was the moment where I started to see the rest of the week fall apart as well. And I really started to, like, doubt started to creep in, that's a really strange feeling for me. And it never normally, that never normally happens. So I'm like, okay, I have to write off Lufthansa. I have to write off these 2 flights, which were not cheap. I've already written off the session with Martin, which was heartbreaking. And I have to find a way to stop the direction I'm going in right now and go in a positive direction, which meant, and I did not have this destination on my bingo card, it meant flying to Portugal of all places. So I get online and I find a Star Alliance flight that's going to Barcelona. Unfortunately, it's not direct. It's going through Lisbon. Okay, whatever. And I buy an entirely new flight at no small expense to go to Barcelona through Lisbon. And I think that happened around 2 a.m. And I had time basically to take a shower, pack my bags, and go to the airport at 3:30 or 3:45. And at 6 a.m. I took off for Lisbon, flew through Lisbon, went to Barcelona, and was far earlier, of course, than I'd anticipated for my Barcelona situation, the recording session, because I'd expected to be in Germany. But I did make it. Got to Barcelona. Daniele Camarda, who I was recording with the next day, was on his way from Paris. He had a little delay, but not crazy. And we made it. We managed to have dinner in Barcelona and kind of reverse the negative direction, for my week at least, that had been happening for the past 24 hours or 15 hours or whatever. Holy crap. That was, it was definitely the worst I'd ever had travel situation like that. And maybe not specifically because of the travel, but because I had to cancel on Martin, which is, even to say it right now is pretty messed up. I wish I didn't have to say that. And of course, he was so incredibly kind and understanding, and he told me, okay, it's not a total loss because we filmed some footage for someone else in the band, so we did use some of the situation. And I'm not sure how nice he was trying to be, because he knew I was in a messed up situation, but he was very gracious and even said, hey, let's try and do it again. Even I was like, wow, okay, then I'm gonna try 100 times harder to make it happen next time. I'm gonna build in so much spare time either side of it. Like I'm going to put at least a day either side of that session if and when we do it again. And I really hope we do. I was very much looking forward to that. And the songs were kind of cool as well. I thought that it was just going to be a nice combination musically. And especially now I know he had got the rest of the band involved. I was like, God, that would have been really fun. So we will try and do that for sure. And, hopefully it'll get a bajillion views and be really worth it. And people will dig it. Let's see. Let's get to the Soundgarden thing. I know we've been like 30 minutes and haven't even touched upon that, and that's probably the title of the video at this point, and how I pissed off, almost over 8.5 million Soundgarden fans. A few weeks ago, I didn't talk about this because I don't think I could actually before it came out, but you'll probably be aware of Drumeo. They're like the Scott's Bass Lessons of the drum world. I think of those two platforms on being pretty huge. Drumeo, I think, is actually bigger. It's been around quite a long time. But Drumeo has multiple facets, multiple lanes, all, I guess, run by Jared, the founder of Drumeo. But they have all these subcategories. Pianote, for instance. There are bunch of, I forget how many channels they have, but we went with Steve Smith, with Manuel Valera, with Vital Information, to do something for Musora, which I guess is their sort of catch-all for like all instruments. And they got like 1.2 million subscribers already, having 1.3 million, my bad, having, I don't know, I'm going to check here how long the Musora channel has been around. Not as long as the others. 2009. Wow, they were thinking ahead of time. It has been around a while. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. They had a big like breakout viral hit with Ulysses Owens, where they did a Nirvana cover that has 7 million views in 9 months. They've had some pretty big videos on their channel, and we went up there, and the whole thing is, jazz fusion band covers, insert name of band here. In our case, it was Soundgarden, on the spot. And they chose Black Hole Sun, probably the biggest song Soundgarden's had, at least according to Spotify stats, with 800 and almost 841 million plays on Spotify. Pretty sure that will join the billion club before long. So it was, first of all, it was really fun. I really liked those people. They took such good care of us from the beginning to the end. It was beautiful. We had some time. We weren't really pressured the night before, so we all went out for a nice dinner with everyone that was working on the project. Very, very nice folks. Very nice to be around with. A place I would go back to anytime to work again. That was my overall. That's what I came away. That's the feeling I came away with, and we were only there for about 24 hours. So yeah, the day of the shoot, we did 2 things for them. We did some Vital Information performances where I think we played 3 songs, and we did an interview, which just came out yesterday, I believe. And it's slightly longer. It's like 31 or 32 minutes long, like a longer form thing. We were interviewed. Great, really fun. Talked about music, explained what we do as a trio, and Steve, gave the background of the band and the history of it a little bit, which is, for people who don't know what Vital Information is about, I think it's a cool video to go watch. What we did that afternoon, sort of after lunch, I don't even know if we made it to lunch that day because it was quite hectic, was the Soundgarden song. They told us ahead of time, we're going to play you a song. You might know it, you might not, you might be a fan of it, you might not, whatever, but this is what we do with all our, with all the people that come in and do this challenge. We play you the song, and then you create a version of it in the style of your band, Vital Information. Fantastic, really fun. I love doing this. I know Manuel loves doing it and does it all the time. Reharmonization, form, and just getting into the weeds musically and seeing how far we can push the original version of the song and actually, retain the melody, retain some characteristics of it, but really get away from the original and make it in our own style. So first of all, a lot of the keyboard warriors in the comments completely missed that point. One of the overwhelming phrases was dark and haunting. Like, people like the dark and haunting characteristics of Black Hole Sun, and like, oh my God, you guys turned it into elevator music. And there were like a couple of chords that sounded like Seal's Kiss from a Rose. So there were tons of, did you hear Kiss from a Rose in that arrangement? And just a lot of people that didn't get the concept. A lot of Soundgarden fans, understandably, that weren't jazz fans, that were like, oh, this is just elevator music or whatever. Okay, fine. Pretty hilarious. But everyone's entitled to their opinion. And then there was a phrase in there. They use it in the intro, and we'll talk about what Musora did with the edit as well, which I think is very interesting. And no shade to Musora at all. They come out, in my opinion, very well in the end of this episode of my podcast. I highly approve of everything they did, even though it painted me as a complete I don't know, Soundgarden hater or total prick. I don't know what. You read the comments. It's pretty amazing. I'll link to it, actually. I'll link to their video below in the description of mine, and you can see what you think. It's pretty hilarious. I'm thinking about doing screenshots of the comments with AI reading them, just as and try and find a funny voice, a funny AI voice to read them, just for the lols. Let's see. Maybe it's a total waste of my time, but it's pretty funny when you do read them. Anyway, the way they edited it, hilarious. I say something like, "Hey, I'm not a fan of something like, despite not being a fan of Soundgarden, this is actually really fun," which was totally honest. I don't choose to put Soundgarden on when I go listen to some music. I'm just like not a fan. Also, okay. I'm finding out that apparently is just not allowed in the world of Soundgarden. Like, apparently you're a bit of a moron, or you're not a legit musician, or a lot of people found it wasn't worth watching the rest of the video once I'd said that. Sadly, I said it in their edit anyway, quite early on. And my initial reaction to those, of course, I haven't reacted to any of them. That would be silly. But I was thinking in my head, like, wow, so if I played one of these people some like microtonal ambient clarinet music or something, and they didn't like it, I said, wow, well, then you're just not a legitimate music fan if you don't like that. It was that absurd. It's like, you have to like this, or you're not. We can't consider you worthy of, I don't know, existence. It feels like it's something. Some of them were really harsh. Some of them it was like a real dumpster fire of hate towards me. And the hilarious thing is, and I think this is where Musora really excelled in their edit. And I gave them no shortage of material to do this with. But what you won't see in the edit is what actually happened on the session. You'll see putting the song together is very accurate. Like, everything is, it's not like what you see in the edit didn't happen. All of that happened, but you're going to see some things that created drama. They created more drama in the edit by leaving them out. So basically, we were on, at that point, a real time crunch. Manuel had a flight that was leaving the same night as the session, and we were an hour away from the airport. So we had a hard out at 6 p.m. Then it was like we knew what the framework was, and we got in the weeds on the arrangement. We made some pretty complex choices and some things that were challenging to play. And the more it was going on, I was like, whoa, this is, I'm going to have to be like, eyes wide open here, ears open, like really hyper focused to get good takes of this. Because you ultimately want a good final take of the song at the end of the session. You do all this work, like 2-3 hours of arrangement, but then all that's pointless if you don't sort of nail it at the end and give a good performance. So we're finally done with the arrangement. By default, we've been sort of rehearsing it and playing it as we write it, and we're ready to start going for some takes. And for whatever reason, and Manuel and I talked about this afterwards, he admitted that like we all have superpowers and we all have things that we're not good at. I think it's really good to be able to know what both ends of the spectrum look like for you or me as a musician, and to be able to admit them. And it lets you know what you need to work on in the future. And in that situation, he said to me afterwards, like, yeah, it's not my strong point, is like remembering a shitload of brand new information in the moment under the gun when the pressure's really on and the clock is ticking down and you got to get it. So what you don't see in the edit is the fact that we would get through like 70% of the take, and I think I want to say 4 times, maybe even 5 times, Manuel missed a cue going to the chorus, where the chorus comes back at the end of our arrangement, like consistently missed it. And so the first 3 times it's like, okay, whatever. And then there's the pressure of the clock, and it's his clock. Like he's the one with the flight to catch. And I think a lot of people missed that because of my reaction, my ultimate reaction in the end. What they put in the edit was like me reacting to the last time the cue got missed, and like, hey, write it down. It's like, I definitely got frustrated. I could have done a way better job at not being frustrated in the moment. But the way it ended up in the edit makes me look like a total dick. What was it, a nightmare to be in a band with? I think that was one of the comments, or many of the comments actually. So yes, if Manuel's Achilles heel is remembering a very brand new form with a lot of information, like right under the gun, maybe my Achilles heel is not having 100% patience in that situation, and not having the ability to not get frustrated at that moment. And they managed to capture all of that. Of course, there were like 8 cameras rolling in the room. Impossible to hide that from anyone. And they kind of pushed that in the edit. Again, like I said before, I'm not mad at anyone in the edit room at Musora. I think for their YouTube channel and for the drama of that video, and how many views does it have? Has 207,000 views in the first week. Word is that it was one of their best performing first day videos on the entire history of the channel, which was amazing. And it's still going strong after a week and getting views after views. There's a reason, there's my comment of not liking Soundgarden and just offending 8.5 million people apparently, or more. And then there's the whole drama built up around, capturing my frustration with Manuel missing the cue in the context of our recording session. So it was a big learning experience for me. It's like that thing of like reality TV. That those TV shows, it's all in the edit. Most of the drama that happens on The Real Housewives or any just dumb, mindless TV show it's rarely that it actually happens. And if it does happen, it's probably about 10% of what they try and show you in the final edit. And that's exactly what happened here. It was essentially a reality TV show. That they have freedom of edit. So everything you do is kind of under the microscope. So yeah, I cringe watching it. Don't get me wrong. It's like, oh shit, it wasn't the greatest thing to say. I'm not a Soundgarden fan, although it was honest. I got to give myself that at the end of the day. I hate bullshitting. I'd hate to be sitting there like, oh yeah, I love Soundgarden, and then that's actually not true. So I'm glad I was honest, and I could have done a better job of being less frustrated in the moment. But to give that context, there is a reason why. And ironically, the time constraints were for his flight at the end of the day. So yeah, it was a really fun day. I think the video is cool. I really like our arrangement, so much so that we're actually going to play that live now. And we have a tour that starts just 2 weeks from now on the East Coast of the US. So if you're around, check tour dates. They're all below. We're going to be out there in New York and Maine and Pennsylvania and all over the place. Massachusetts, maybe, I can't remember. Just a bunch of dates, 2 weeks of dates. We're going to be recording a new album. It's all happening. So yeah. Holy crap, that was a lot of stories, a lot of talking. Hopefully we'll get to some music on the next one. I haven't even touched upon the recording session with Daniele Camarda in Barcelona, which was yesterday. I might never have played with a musician as heavy as this. Forget about the bass. Forget about the fact that he's another bass player. It was so unbelievably inspiring. Made me rethink a lot of things I do as a bass player, as a person who uses effects, as a person who's into ambient music and soundscapes and melody and harmony and all of these different things. It was on a whole other level I had not experienced before. So I think we got about 14 pieces of music recorded literally in 4 hours. We were only there for 4 hours in the studio in the end. And we had great hangs and talks and talking about philosophy of music and process, and a very inspiring day. And of course, the whole week, very inspiring. On the other side of it, being around Ian and having this clinic situation be two very different views on music and two very different approaches, two very different players coming together to answer the same questions from an audience. I thought that was really interesting. And it's something we are going to investigate doing a lot more of in the future. I think it's maybe the most valuable setup of a clinic / masterclass that I've seen for the audience. And I'd like for us to get better at that, to expand upon it, and to do it on more of a regular basis. So that is something I'm going to start working on almost immediately. I'm going to get your vinyl out there for everyone who pre-ordered it, and for anyone who wants a copy of this, there are now physical copies in stock, ready to ship right away in the description of the video. That's it. Appreciate you spending some of your insanely precious time with me, talking about music and travel and the ups and downs of being on the road, the emotions of having to miss a gig for the first time, and why and how that happened, and then what we learn from it, and how we try and plan and future proof so that doesn't happen again in the future. That's it. We'll see you all very soon.